All right, today I'm here with Cage Warriors Featherweight World Champion, Pride of Teesside, one half of the most dangerous brothers in UK MMA, Harry Hardwick. Harry, what's happening? How you doing?
I'm doing good. Yeah, it's really close to a fight again. This will be my third five rounder in just under 10 months. Bit different because George will be sharing the card with us. So yeah, fucking don't know. I'm just excited. Like, just want to get after it now.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you. And like you just said, it's a week away now. Back in London, defending your featherweight title for the third time. How does it feel getting back into the cage and back in London?
London's got a lot of happy memories for me and George as competitors. Obviously, that's where George won the belt. But I think our combined record in London is 10-0. Like, it's good. There was the York Hall shows, there were the Indigo shows. I fought in the Wembley Arena. There's lots of good memories with London. So it is good to be back there. I like well, both me and George like the fact that the cage in the Indigo is actually smaller.
Oh, it's,
So
it's
like,
so cool as well, in it? The way that it's laid out on the stage, sort of thing. I love it.
yeah, it's fucking mint. So just yeah, me and George having scraps in London again. You know, looking to leave London with a combined record of 12-0 in the capital.
Your last three fights have all been by finishes. You've had two KOs and a submission. I know you're always going into the cage looking to do damage, but has there been a conscious effort to work on getting finishes, maybe to bring more eyeballs to you, or is this just a sign of your development as a fighter?
Like, obviously, I was wanting finishes in the other fights. Finishes they they do massively help, and especially with the way that the UFC sort of talent scouting process goes, um, you do need to be getting the finishes. But I just had like a string of really entertaining fights and wins that had all gone the distance, and I was like, it was a bit frustrating, and I needed to get that monkey off my back. But now the monkey's off my back. Got that submission win over Esteban, and then obviously the last two fights have been five rounders, and I'm like, I've had so many fights where I've thought like I've got to the end of the third round, knowing I've won, but I thought if I had two extra rounds, I could have got them out of there. And last fight, fourth round finish. Um, Javier's a bit of a divvy, but probably tough, awkward. So I fully anticipate, you know, having to pilot on him in the championship rounds to get him out of there. But I'm coming for another finish, another knockout. I want this to be my third knockout in 10 months, all in title fights. I just think that would be an incredibly cool thing to be able to say.
100%. I think it topped things off really well. And you've sort of touched a little bit then about Javier. He's an experienced fighter, a record of 12-5. In particular, a notable win on his record over a guy who fought and lost. I mean, to be fair, he might even get cut, AJ Cunningham, but nevertheless, a win over a UFC caliber guy. What are your thoughts on the whole with him, and what kind of challenges are you expecting him to bring?
He's as a fighter, he's interesting because he does win most of the time, but he's incredibly dull. Like, I actually fell asleep watching one of his fights. I think it was the fight with Rob Hernandez. I was just sat, I don't have a chair in my room for some reason. So I was just sat on the floor watching that. And then I doze off, and then George comes in and says, "Oh, it's time to go training." I'm like, "Oh, fuck." And then he looks at the screen and just laughs because obviously that fight was still going on. He's just, I don't know, it's like there are, when he sort of won the LFA title, which ended up being a weird no contest for some reason. I don't know the ins and outs of it. When he won that, the round where he got the submission that the guy didn't tap to, but the ref stopped it anyway. When he got that one round of fighting he did was brilliant. But other than that, a lot of it has been just sort of like completely disengaging on the feet, maybe throwing a double jab and dipping his head to the right a bit, going for a single leg. If he doesn't get it, going for a trick. If he doesn't get it, like He's an unusual one, but I haven't really seen him get dropped in any of his fights. I've seen him get cracked a few times, but I haven't seen him get dropped. And in all those fights he's had, I think he's been submitted early on in his career, but he's never been knocked out. So like, there must be something he does. There must be something somewhere. Maybe I'll get in the cage and go, oh, okay. But like, I feel full of confidence that I can be the first guy to stop him with strikes.
And it like you say, it'd be a good thing to get off, because I watched a couple of his fights, and
Oh, I feel so sorry for you, man. It's dreadful, isn't it?
It's like he's not doing a lot, but he's somehow, I don't know, like you've just said, it's weird, isn't it? Because you're watching him and it's like he's not doing anything particularly that bad, but he's not really doing anything that good. It just looks a bit. You can see why he's never got any further, if you know what I mean. I mean, I'm
Yeah,
biased because I'm a British guy, so I'm like on your side. So I'm looking at this and thinking, Harry's going to fucking flatten this dude. He's going to get him with the pressure, and he's going to get a result. But it just didn't. I'm not seeing a lot out of him that you should be worried
yeah.
about.
Like that is something to motivate myself. And then I've got, there's the voice in the back of my head, like, I can't let this idiot get on top of me. I can't let him maybe hit me with an elbow and cut me. I can't let him like latch onto my neck in any way. Like there's definitely things where I'm like, all right, I can't fucking let any of this shit happen. Um, but no, I think over 5 rounds, I I smashed this guy.
I'm liking the little plug there. I might have to get that into my intro on the channel.
But yeah, feel feel perfectly free.
Now, one thing that I did actually quite like about him, and something I spotted on the San Diego show, the mariachi entrances that he does, and they are pretty cool. Like, you can't really knock him for that part. Now, onto yourself. Have you got any plans with him obviously having quite a flamboyant entrance? Are we going to maybe get Tony Hadley and Martin Kemp down to play you out, like anything like that?
If I could, that would be cool. But I don't think I'm going to enter to gold. Um, I, I I don't like entering to the same song more than once. I have done that with one song ever, and it was Voodoo People by The Prodigy. Um, good song, good performances, both fights, but that is the one and only time as a professional. I don't know. It's just not my thing. I think I think I might enter to Dizzy Rascal's Dirty Cash because the hook for that song has sort of become popular again. It's kind of been doing the rounds, but the actual lyrics of the song are about London, and it's mint. So
Yeah, not bad choice.
I think that's what I'm going for. George has picked a very interesting entrance song, but I don't want to spoil it. I think
Yeah.
it's very George. It's very good. Yeah, I think it'll be both funny, but get people amped up. I think it's one of those where especially if you're there live, but George has picked a doozy.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it, man. I'm going to be getting down there, so I'll keep my eyes peeled for that one, and looking forward to seeing what he comes out with. Now, speaking of George, it's been a wild week for you and the team at MFA. Initially, he was fighting on the behind closed doors card in Manchester. Now he's moved on to this O2 card. Now, you've both fought on the same card previously, but this time you're going to be defending your belts on the same card. How does it feel to be sort of going up a level there?
I mean, for ages we were just like, oh, we can't be fuck doing 5 rounders on the same show. That's a lot, man. And like in prep, it's a lot. But like when Lucas Clay pulled out, and we were just like, just fuck it, we'll do it. We'll do what needs to be done to make it work. So I suggested that to Ian Dean because I was like, when Lucas Clay pulled out, there was maybe a day, maybe 2 days to get an opponent to come in and all that kind of stuff. So I suggested it to Ian Dean, kind of being like, look, my thinking was there's a lot more chance of getting someone with like 8 or 7 days notice than there is 2.
Yeah.
And then Ian Dean has pulled it off. Are we airing this interview after it's announced or before
Yes,
it's announced?
after
After
it's
it's announced.
announced, 100%.
Okay, so he is fighting Samuel Silver. He's LFA veteran, 12 wins, 4 losses, 1 draw. I think 3 of those losses were like quite early on, and like I think it's since 20. So he's on a 4 fight winning streak. Then he lost one, but then before that he hadn't lost since 2017, I think. But
Yeah,
one
yeah.
of his fights in LFA, brother, you know how I was talking about falling asleep during studying Javier Garcia. This this is possibly one of the most entertaining fights I've ever watched studying an opponent for me or George.
Which
Uh,
one was it? Because I've just pulled his record up now. Who was he?
it's it's the
I'll watch it in
one.
a bit.
Uh, I think it's what is the name of not the last guy beat, but the guy beat before it. Some
Rodrigo Lidio.
that one,
Decision split.
that one. That is a
I'll have a
fucking
look.
that just anyone go watch Samuel Silva versus Rodrigo Ligio. That is
Lidio, I'm guessing.
that is
I'm not going to
oh
butcher it, but I'll
like
have a look. And everybody else, go and check that out.
but yeah like that's the thing. It's really hard to find someone on short notice and then to find someone title worthy. Like that have similar record on short notice. I'll hold a big hand of respect out to Marion Vitrella or Vitrella Marion. The kickboxer guy from BST, he was throwing his name in the hat. But I think where he'd just had, I think 6 MMA fights, they were a bit reluctant to give him the title shot. Like Orlando Wilson Prince hadn't had the most fights when I fought him, but it was just very last minute when my opponent pulled out. Um, so to find someone with a very similar record to George and someone I hate these kind of platitudes and stuff, but this guy is a proper old school fighter. Like he is there for a fight. He's there to compete. He's there. He is there to win, and he just like even if he well, you just if you watch that fight, you'll know what I mean. Even if he gets quite fucked up, he's still going for it. But this guy's dangerous. He's been competing and grappling regularly. I know that. He looks in shape. So obviously he's been doing Brazilian sparring multiple times a week. So he's basically been having fights multiple times a week anyway. So yeah, I think this is a dangerous, dangerous test. There are definitely exploitable areas in this fella's game, like really exploitable. But we got to mind our P's and Q's.
So looking at his record, I mean, he's got a good record. He's got KO wins. He's got submission wins. It looks to me like on paper, it could be a good all round threat, and that's what you want because you want good competitive fights. No one want as much as good as it is to go in there and knock someone out within 10 seconds, and it looks nice. But you want to test yourselves, don't you? I suppose.
Yeah, and like, or even if you get like a competitive matchup and then you just blast them out of the water, then it's like, do you know where there's the element of the uncertainty? Like the fucking last geezer I fought, like there was elements of fucking nerves and fear and all this kind of shit that, like the first round had the odd ropey moment, but other than that, like kind of objectively looking at how that fight went, I ran away with it. But it's, you want to be running away with it against the best fucking people you can, really. And
Yeah.
like this guy, he is no slouch. I got mad respect for him just for the aforementioned fight, and then for the fact that he's willing to step in and take this fight against George on a week's notice. He's a fucking boil.
Can't knock him. Like for me, obviously, naturally, anyone that gets in the cage I've got a lot of respect for. But on a week's notice, on such a big stage, it's a big thing, isn't it? It's a hard thing to
Yeah.
do.
Sometimes though, when people like, he's not had a full camp of like, like building up anxiety or nerves about the situation, and then he'll just be going in and doing what's fresh and like sometimes in training camps people can kind of dilute their game trying to fight to a game plan, whereas This fucker's just going to come in and he's just going to do what is most immediately available to his subconscious, which is a dangerous fucking thing.
Yeah, it's very true. It's very true. And sort of, we touched a little bit then about sort of you both being on this card and both being in title fights. Now, normally I'd imagine for yourself or for George, if you were just fighting, it would be a case of, you know, getting yourself in the zone and getting ready. But with one of you fighting, I'm guessing is you're gonna be the main? I would have thought, and then George will be maybe third on the bill.
I think what they're going to do to keep us separate on the card is George is going to headline the prelims, so he's going to be like top of the bill there, and then I'm going to be top of the bill on the. Do you know, just for our sake to keep, you know, like because it would be a bit of a fuck on any other
That's what I was
way.
about to ask you.
Yeah.
Because, like, if you went in and then suddenly, like, say if you've gone to corner George and he's had a rough time, and then he's going to want to come out with you, and you're like fucking revolving door out and back out. That'd be mental, but it'd make a lot more sense doing it like that.
Yeah, and you know, like it gives. I think I'm like normally after George's fought, I'll go to the medical room with him and just sort of sit while he's doing his interviews and stuff. But I think as soon as he's won, I'm probably just going to dip back to the changing room and just lie down for a bit. But yeah, it makes it better. And then instances where like one of us, you know, where we've both fought on the same show before, we always find the person who fights first and then corners the second fight is like we've both felt really sharp cornering for some reason. And I'm like, oh, maybe the way to get your brain firing for this kind of thing, just having a fight with someone.
Picking fights every time you corner in George. No, just anyone in the media area.
I mean, in fact, normally I'll hit pads. I'll get someone to hold pads and I'll hit pads just to get me used to. Part of like to get my brain firing and part just to get used to being active and doing something in the fight show backstage environment.
That makes sense because you want to get yourself in the zone, I suppose, isn't it? So I understand. Now, you were obviously initially planning for there to be a week between fights. How has the switch around affected both of your preparations for this one?
Honestly, it might have been the best case scenario. Like George having the extra little bit of time to recover. Obviously, he's not going to lose any fitness or anything, but he's just maybe had a longer break between his last spar and the fight. It's just like sometimes you get that thing where you just feel really sharp where you've not sparred as regularly, but obviously you stayed in really good shape doing the other stuff and then it means I haven't had to spend several days this week in a hotel in Manchester. I've just been chilling at home doing my normal stuff. But then the fact that we were initially preparing for different dates, so there's like, especially towards the end of fight camp, we have these like horrendous sessions where you alternate between bad positions and pads and stuff. And they're typically like the last 3 Saturdays of fight camp, but then the last one for the 5 rounders, me and George started moving them earlier in the week. But like, there was one day where it dovetailed where I had this, and these lasted about 35, 40 minutes. Then I had to, you know, just get my breath back, hoist some protein and electrolytes down me, pad up, and then hold pads for George and put him through the session. Like, it was a bit of a slog, but you know, like if we'd had initially been scheduled for the same card, we'd have had to do that 3 times, or we'd have had to find some way of working around it. So I actually think in the prep, it's helped as far as the the what's the word? Like the sort of timing. I think it's probably helped George probably peak at a better time. And then also like because obviously George had the Contender Series fight, and then his last fight in Glasgow, like it wasn't the busiest of events, and he wasn't the local guy, so it was kind of like there wasn't really a crowd there. And then
Yeah.
you'd have got the Unplugged again, where there wouldn't have really been a crowd. He hasn't experienced a crowd in a while, whereas now he'll get London, and the London crowd's sick.
Yeah. Are you going to be sticking around for the UFC London card, or are you going to be shooting straight off?
Probably won't be sticking around just because I don't have tickets, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go home. My cousin's got a free house for the weekend. I'm just going to get as many Parmos as I can. And me and my cousin are probably just going to sit and watch the UFC together.
Do you think Leon will get it done? It's a tough one, man. I
Yeah,
think,
it's a tough one. I rate Sean Brady.
yeah.
But yeah, I'm hoping he does. It is a tough one. It's definitely a tough fight, though.
I think it's tougher than the one we were initially getting. I think JDM, although he's very good, it would have been a stand-up fight, which I think Leon's counter punching would have served him well. Whereas Brady's going to be after his legs for 25 minutes,
Yeah, Leon's wrestling defense is pretty good, and his clinch is incredibly good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. The fight that I'm looking forward to on that card the most is Nathaniel Wood versus Sharia. That is the one.
I recorded because I do a weekly podcast where I just talk through like this week, next week, and that's my sort of sleeper fight of the night. That one, I think it'll be an absolute banger. Both of them like to throw. They're both all round good. I think it's going to be a cracking little scrap.
Similar tools as well, like calf kicks and left hooks. Snap kicks are like the danger strikes from both of them. Well, yeah, that's a fucking banger of a fight.
Oh, that'd be really good. Right, Harry, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today. Finishing things off, is there anybody you want to shout out? Anyone you want to thank? Anything like that?
Yeah, just got to thank all my training partners at Middlesbrough Fight Academy. Like, you know, it really is like a second family to me. Got to thank my coaches, Abdul Mohammed, Peter Irving, Richie Stoneham, big Andy Coulson from Unit 29 Fitness. He sponsors JMac, Monterey, Rev Gear, Manjaro's, Off the Ground. I'm going to forget one on Close Protection Security. The Honky Tonk. I have a Honky Tonk sponsor.
Oh, hello. What's the honky tonk?
I've not even been to the Honky Tonk yet because I've been in fight camp pretty much entirely since the sponsor. This is just there's a Honky Tonk in Middlesbrough and now a Honky Tonk in Gisborough, which is like right nearby. So I'm gonna have to go check the Honky Tonk out.
Sounds good. Again, Harry, thanks for making some time for me. I've really enjoyed talking with you today. And best of skill on Friday night. Not best of luck because I don't think you're going to need any luck.
Thank you very much. I'm gonna punch Javier's stupid tash clean off.